bungee jumping, skydiving, and learning. All of these involve risk. And in this episode of the After Dinner Leadership podcast, I spoke with Antonia Bowring about her views on risk. It emerged as a theme as we connected it to all sorts of different topics. Take a listen. Think about your own levels of risk and your willingness to risk when it involves change and learning. It was a wonderful conversation, and her insights on coaching yourself and being able to do that, which connects with her new book, is a real must listen. She also is open enough to talk about her diagnosis of ADHD as an adult and the impact that has had and the benefits it's brought from new perspectives. We invite you to listen, and we invite you to invite others to listen too, to share and to like this episode, and I trust that you'll enjoy it as much as I do. So welcome, Antonia, to the After Dinner Leadership podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It's lovely to have you, and you're dialing in from Manhattan today, and grateful for you to make time for this conversation. We call this the After Dinner Leadership conversation. Maybe this is your after lunch conversation today.
Or let's see, pre-lunch.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for
late
joining
morning.
us for that.
Late,
a bit
how
of brunch.
about this?
Bit of brunch.
Late morning tea with the Queen.
Perfectly synchronized. I love it. Great. We always like to invite our guests to join us in some quick fire questions. 1 minute, some short responses just to find out about you. Are you ready for those?
Well, is there a buzzer that goes off after 1 minute, so I have to talk really fast? Okay.
There is. It's like it's a countdown,
right.
And you'll hear this big kind of bass thump that brings us to the end of the 60 seconds.
Okay.
Right.
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Name.
Antonia Bowring.
Organization.
AB Strategies.
What is a film that inspires you?
Oh, The Godfather.
Why is that?
Because it's multi-generational leadership.
Right. What's a question you like to ask?
What's your cultural background?
What's your favorite time of day?
Oh, early morning for writing.
Where would we find you on a Friday night?
Probably in bed as soon as I can get there. I'm tired Friday.
Do you prefer sweet or savory?
Oh, sweet every day, all day long.
Right. Who is a role model you look up to?
Oh, Joanne Kilmeyer, who was my coaching trainer and mentor, who sadly passed away several years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, pleased
thanks.
that she's still in your memory. I'm sorry to hear that she's no longer with us. Oh, thank you. What was it about Joanne that you loved? It was clear there's a mentor role there, but what was it about?
She was unbelievably present. She was unbelievably present when you were getting advice from her or workshopping an issue with her. And she also, it's funny, I don't know if I've ever really identified this out loud. There was something incredibly maternal about her, like comforting, warm, embracing, that made you feel very safe. Yeah. Right. Thank you for that, because I don't know if I've ever said that part out loud.
Great. Well, we hope. I hope this conversation has the same thread through for both of us. Now, clearly, you've got a sweet tooth. Well,
my goodness!
You lit up with that question. What would be your snack of choice?
Cookies. And guess what? Last night I made my first batch of shortbread for the holiday season.
Good on you. Great. Was that like post Thanksgiving? Is that your first sign of Christmas? Is it?
Yes.
Into shortbread making, right?
Exactly. Okay. The tree's up.
Very good.
And yeah.
Great. What's your cultural background? What and again, I know it's quite quick fire questions, but that is a question. Why do you like asking that so much?
Um, so I actually don't ask it that way, but I was on the spot and I was
Hmm.
thinking about the buzzer. What I ask often in a chemistry call with, and for those who don't know what that is, that's when you're meeting someone you may potentially coach. They call it
Yeah,
a chemistry call. I may ask, what are the most important influences, cultural, geographic background that will help me understand who you are today?
yeah, yeah. Hey, that sounds like a really good
Oh,
question
should we
to
do
ask
it?
you. Does it? I
Oh,
think
but
so.
do I get to ask you?
No, it's for you to
Oh no,
answer.
come
I think
on. Oh no, come on. We got to do it both ways.
Okay, fine.
All right. So
Go for it.
so I'll set it up. The question is, what are three things, if you understood these three things about me, you would really understand a lot about who I am today.
Yeah.
I would say I'm Canadian. I am a mother of two sons, and I am an eternal seeker with a very curious learning mindset. I kind of snuck two in that last one.
Yeah, that's great. I think you got 3.5 there, didn't you? That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. What
It's very
about
good.
you?
Very good.
Well,
It's clever.
if I asked you that.
Okay, so I would say family. So the broader, again, this is me extending beyond
Yeah,
the
okay,
roles.
okay.
So family's a very big part of who I am. I'm one of 11 children. My wife and I have 7
Wow.
children.
Wow.
So extended family's large, and our family is a large part of my psyche, my life, and and happiness in those relationships too, which I know is not always the case for
Yes.
people. So that's good.
That's
So that's a
one.
very big
That's
part of who
one.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Thank you.
wow.
I thought that was worth about 3, but
Yeah, but
I'll
I'm
take
giving you
the one.
one. Yeah.
Um, Another cultural piece is probably linked partly to that, of course, is my faith. So
Mm.
I am a Christian, and
Mm-hmm.
I devoted to that. It's a big part of who I aspire to be as well as who I am. So, and impacts my family.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And then my third one, what's most interesting? I really enjoy making a positive difference
Mm.
wherever I
Mm-hmm.
can.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell my clients, but that's more important to me than the money.
Mm-hmm. I know,
Oh,
don't tell
there's
mine.
other people listening to this.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Beautiful. It's such a, I feel as if I know you with that question quite well. I mean,
Good.
mm,
There's lots of layers, isn't there? No, no,
mm,
equally. So thank you for sharing what you have done. And well, actually, that bridges into 3 questions I love to always ask as well, which may cover similar things, but 3 leadership lessons you wish you'd learned earlier.
mm,
I know that you have recently released a book called Coach Yourself, and maybe there's
mm-hmm,
going to be some
mm-hmm.
overlay with that as well, which we'll talk about in some detail later. But I always love to ask this question: what 3 leadership lessons do you wish you'd learned earlier?
Yeah. Okay. Well, leadership life lessons. So these are not in any particular order.
Fine.
Embrace feedback, however you get it. Don't be afraid of it. Take from it what you need, but really, really embrace it. It's a
Yeah.
gift and it's a sign of love. That's number one. Number two is exquisite listening skills are what will take you the furthest. And thirdly, I would say risk is part of learning. Embrace risk, the right amount of risk, but don't be afraid of it.
Super. Let's get into those. I love your choice of words when I always love to explore this. So embrace embrace feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that choice of verb.
Well, I have spoken a lot about, it's funny, it must be something in the cycle right now. I've been speaking a lot about feedback, and some people want to call it feed forward, and some people hate the word, and they want to call it insights or advice or whatever. And I think that as humans, we don't like to get it and we don't like to give it. And I think that that's because I'm a very positive person and I don't think we like to upset people in general. I think in general, we prefer to not deal with discomfort in general as a trait, let's say.
I agree. Yeah.
And so feedback, whether you're giving or receiving, exactly means you have to enter that zone of discomfort. And I would like to argue that many companies, because they've been in a zone where feedback isn't given, where people don't have uncomfortable conversations, it's caused more damage than the sort of tyrannical caricature of companies run by, real hard asses. I think it's actually in this more negligent uh, area that there's more destruction. And so I think as a leader, you have to be very sensitive. You should be to how you deliver it to others. And as a leader, I think you take it any way you get it. And that is part of your responsibility of a leader. I'll stop there.
Great. Well, I like it, and I have affinity to the points you're making. It's something that I am trying to work on myself. I have done for many years to be better
Me
at
too.
this as a skill, and in receiving feedback and soliciting it. Asking for feedback and genuinely being interested in the answer that I'm given, rather than just listen out for the thing that I want to hear, or validation that something. I know that one level I want them to say, "Oh no, it was all good." If I'm asking, how well did that go, or what was that thing like, or that I've delivered to you. But the richer conversation and the learning and the real power is in the getting into the stuff that's below that surface answer.
Yeah. So also, as someone with an adult diagnosis of ADHD, I can't stand redoing things. I just want to move on, go to the next. So, for example, with writing, when I give people things to review that I've written, I really just want them to say it's perfect. I really don't want any input. But I'm joking. But you also have to slow down, right? You can't really take it in if you don't slow down. And I would also add to this conversation that as an adult, you decide what you want to keep. Like, those are gifts being given to you, but you decide if you actually want to receive them. And I think that's important because you can't work on everything at once. And there are some things that, because every characteristic has the other side, the shadow side, or the shadow has the other side. So there may be things you actually don't want to change that much. And I think as an adult, you have that right to decide.
Would you be comfortable with us talking about your diagnosis with ADHD a little later? Would that be all right?
Sure. Yeah.
I'd love to come back to that and explore that some more. Now the second point that you had was around exquisite listening, and we've already talked about, I guess, receiving feedback involves listening. Again, you've chosen this word exquisite, which immediately draws me in. What does that mean?
Yeah. I borrowed that. By the way, have you read the book Steal Like an Artist?
No, I haven't. No.
It's a graphic kind of book, graphical, not.
Yes,
I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. my colleague used that term exquisite because I used to use active listening, but that's so boring. Exquisite listening. Yeah, I I love that word exquisite because it says so much. So we all know we should listen better, right? But
Yeah.
exquisite listening means to me, again, you're creating that space around it. Exquisite almost means there's a pause. And exquisite also means you're not just listening to words. Exquisite means you're listening to all the facets, the body,
Yeah.
like even as you said, when I answered the question about sweets or savory, you were doing some good listening there because you heard my love of sugar come through in my answer.
Yeah.
So I think of it as sort of multi-sensory is one way, and you can listen when no one's saying a word, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
agree.
I can give you a great example.
Please do.
I was running a little workshop for a leadership team, and what were they doing? I asked them all to put down, I know, it was kind of an elevator pitch of if you were describing this new strategy to your stakeholders, how would you describe it? And the whole room, about 10 of them, were on their laptops. And that was a moment of exquisite listening because I swear I wouldn't have said this 10 years ago. There was like a vibration, like a
Yeah.
hum in the room where they were all focused on this task. And there was this amazing energy. And to me, I got to experience exquisite listening there.
Great. It's a good example. Yeah, it's interesting how frequently that comes up as one of the leadership lessons that people wish they'd learned earlier.
Yeah.
So it's the most common response.
Is that
So
right?
what we're yeah,
Is
that
that
I've
right?
had. I mean, I've been doing this a few years now. I mean, we're at nearly 70 episodes, and that's the most common of the leadership lessons. It's associated with listening, something to do with listening.
Something to
Yeah.
do with listening.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it's similar to feedback perhaps, but it feels like it's a lifelong quest. There's so many
Yeah.
different levels to it, and um, there's times where I think actually I'm doing pretty well at that, then you realise you're not at all, and you're missing a ton of stuff, and yeah,
Well,
it's a bit like humility. I think when you think you're good at
yeah.
it, you're probably you
Yeah.
probably lost something.
Well,
Yeah,
and also, I mean, just riffing a bit off the size of your family. I mean, how we behave at work, how we behave at home. I'm a, I am a very good listener with my clients. I am
right,
not a very good listener with my sons. I hope I'm getting better, but
sure,
the desire to jump in and tell them the answer and manage the situation versus coach or consult
yes,
is I feel sometimes hardwired.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a fair point. Fair point. And actually, let's finish the 3 points, and then I'd
Yeah.
love to talk about some of the other things. So you've mentioned this risk being an important part of the learning process.
Mm,
Again, I'd love to hear what's informed that
yeah.
as one of your three leadership lessons.
Yeah, I think that's really linked to confidence. And when sometimes when clients come to me and they're particularly women, oh no, I need to work on my confidence. I always sort of say, well, like what is confidence? To me, that's like saying I need to work on my communication skills.
Yeah.
Like you have to really dig into all the little buckets that make that up. And to me, um, risk taking, appropriate risk taking is really about, oh my gosh, we could talk a long time about this, but it's really about how you change. And because you can't change when you're in perfect comfort, right? You
Yes.
change when you're in that sort of gray zone, according to William Bridges, right? Between sort of the present and the future. The change zone is very uncomfortable, but you only get there by taking a certain amount of calculated risk. And that's risk that I can sit with discomfort, risk that I can handle whatever comes my way, and risk that things will be better, that there is a future state that is better, I'll put in quotation marks, more evolved than today's. And so I think a lot about risk, and I think of it also in terms of, as a leader, using your intuition and using data, and how do you balance that, and when do you lean more into one than the other, and what kind of risk is that? And so, long answer.
Yeah, it's a helpful answer though, and thank you for going there. I think it's I think of immediately coaching conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks of people and that confidence point. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a big part of confidence is their, the way in which they've handled those risks in the past,
Yeah.
often successfully.
Yes.
With the
Yes.
hindsight, of course, as they look forward to the future, they're still seeing similar risks with the trepidation, as if they've never been through something like this before. And
Yeah.
I can fall into that trap as easy as they can, as well, on certain things. So yeah, it's a really nice perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Would it be okay if we just picked up the point around the ADHD
Sure.
again that
Yeah.
you shared with us? Would that be all
Yeah.
right? I'm
Sure.
just interested to know how being diagnosed has enhanced your perspective with regards to leadership and life and coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's a nice segue when we were talking about confidence. I would say, so I got diagnosed several years ago, but in my early 50s. And it was just a game changer. And I would actually say that my confidence today is much higher. Uh, and why is that? I think that, to me, there's two pieces when I think about ADHD. I call it the profound and the practical. And
Yeah,
the practical is just how you get things done that may be a little more difficult with different brain wiring, or a lot more difficult, right? Depending on the severity of your symptoms. And then I think of the profound piece, which is particularly if you're an adult diagnosis, you have a lifetime of experiences, a whole narrative about yourself, a whole narrative that people have fed to you because of behaviors and actions and their perceptions of you.
what would be an example of that? What kind of
Oh,
thing?
you can't listen. Oh, aren't we just tying all the pieces together?
Yeah, it's
Oh, you're
perfect.
a terrible listener. Or, oh, you can't focus. Or, oh, you can't sit still. Or, yeah, you're never paying attention when we have a conversation. You're always
Understood.
wandering. Yeah,
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
And and those things like chip away at you, and and build up to your own perception of who you are, right? And what the diagnosis allowed me to do was say, all that to me, sorry, adds up to shame and a self narrative that's built a lot on shame. And what the diagnosis allowed was a reframing. For me, it gave me information, new information, like solving a puzzle, right? That allowed me to go back and look at my history and go, oh, huh, I'm not a bad person who can't focus. Oh, I have different brain wiring. Okay. Now it's my responsibility to do something with that information. It's not an excuse, but it
yes,
helps me understand who I am in a way that literally washed away shame.
yeah. How did you come to discover, like, what led to the,
Yeah,
if you don't mind me
yeah.
asking, the kind of the diagnosis?
No, no,
How
no.
did that go about?
Well, I think very, very typical. My oldest son was going into high school and got tested. And I remember going with him to all um, a psychologist did the actual diagnosis through testing. And then there's a psychiatrist involved when you're talking about medication. And by the way, like it's very privileged. We could be in a situation where we could,
Sure.
take advantage of those resources. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, this kind of sounds like me. Never thought about it before. And then it took a year or two by the time I took the step to get it all done. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I wasn't
And
surprised at all, but it was nice to have the confirmation.
yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And this appreciation of neurodiverse factors in the workplace has
Yeah,
accelerated a lot over even the
it
last few years.
has.
Probably
It has.
post-COVID, I would say it kind of has a
Yeah,
bit of
yeah.
an
Great
uptick. I think
point. Great point.
associated with the wider people appreciating maybe some mental wellness as well as
Yeah. No, I think that's a
aspects
fair
of
point.
spectrum. Um, yeah, what maybe there's some people who are leading at the moment and are thinking, yeah, I've got ADHD, but I haven't really gone public with it, or I had a diagnosis, or maybe recently, or maybe even the same situation as you, as I suspect I might be ADHD. Have you got any kind of insights from your own journey that may be helpful to someone in that situation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first of all, if you're an adult who just got a recent diagnosis, I mean, I just want to say, you're a rock star. You made it this far. You created systems and scaffolding for yourself. And I really honor what you've accomplished. And secondly, I would say, get help. Like reframe your narrative. That is a really important. It's not just about, is my calendar working? Like there's that two parts of this, and so don't neglect the profound piece, and kind of working towards more wholeness. And third, I would say, it is only you. It is absolutely your decision to decide who you talk to about this, where and when. And
Yeah,
any coach that says you should do one thing or another, I would go find another. Um, because that's really a very personal decision. Different work environments are much more supportive than others. Um, I think I didn't talk about it at first, but then I
yeah,
just got very comfortable with it and saw uh, it just means I have different brain wiring. It doesn't mean
yeah.
anything else. But yeah, those would be the three key things I would want to say to someone.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that and being so open about it too. Thank you. Now, you have written a book called Coach Yourself.
Yeah.
And uh, would you share the origin story to that as
Yeah,
a piece
sure.
of literature?
Yeah, sure. So I started writing quite a bit articles online
Yeah,
through the Forbes Coaches Council and other venues. And then I got a call. I actually had not considered writing a book. I got a call from my publisher, or soon to be my publisher, Wiley, and they said, "Have you thought about writing a book?" And I will share this with you. Um, Many people said, "Don't bother. No one reads books," because I did a little bit of research. And uh, my next book could have been my first book, but it couldn't have because it's a complicated book to write. Now I'm on
yes.
a roll. I'm going to do another one. But so when Wiley said, "Well, what book?" I thought, "Well, okay, I've been coaching for a decade. There's about a dozen frameworks I use day in and day out. What if I shared them with a broader audience? What if I democratized executive coaching? Shared these mysterious tools that people pay hundreds of dollars or pounds an hour to
Yeah.
receive. And what if I put it all into a book that's kind of like a DIY, do it yourself, very, very friendly reference book? So my intention was never that someone would pick it up and read it cover to cover. My intention was more thumb through it so you know where everything is and you know where
Yeah.
the resources are. But, oh, these frameworks are when you are getting started with an issue. These are all about communication. These are all about managing a team or being on a team.
Yeah.
And these are all about habit formation and so know that about the book and then be able to pick it up when you hit a bump in the road.
Great. I love it. And which of the frameworks do you most enjoy sharing with clients?
It's a tie. I said this I was doing a book event. My son was there, and the interviewer asked me, which is your favorite framework? And I said, this was sort of rehearsed. I said, oh, come on. That's like asking a mother who's her favorite child. And then my
Yeah.
son in the back of the room sort of put up his hand and said, we know who that is, right? That'd be very hard for you if you have seven. Um, so I would go, I think, with the values exercise. It's really more an exercise than a framework, or
Sure.
the spectator actor, because to me, that is like fundamental way of thinking about life and your agency in life. But the values one is, if you don't know your values, how do you have a North Star? How do you have a
Yeah.
long-term vision? How do you ladder that back to goals? Like, you're lost, right? So, and I think values can change over the course of a life. I think you need to check in with your values periodically. And key to me is, I think you have to always be thinking about, how do I activate them, both in terms of my goal setting, or, vision of what I want or my goals, and how I live my life as a daily practice.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, I love doing values work, and in my own life as well as with clients. Um, the spectator actor framework. Could you share a little bit more about that? How that
Yeah.
might help?
Yeah. That's, um, I learned this in it was must be the best coaching course I've ever taken, run by a guy called Fred Kaufman, Kofman. I can't remember the name of his book now. I thought it was unbelievably powerful. And, you know, I think I want to be very careful here and say, I think there are people who talk about agency in a toxic way, in a, well, you are who you are, it's all up to you. I don't believe in that kind of toxic agency,
Sure.
but I do believe that an initial reaction, a very normal initial reaction, is to look at an issue or problem and see everything being done to you. Well,
Yes.
I'm just the spectator here. I'm just the victim. It's all being done to me. And I think that's normal. And then you have to say, okay, what's my agency here? What's my power? How can I be an actor in my own drama, in my own on stage? What can I do? Like, what are the options? And even if it's mentally changing my mindset, because I, I can't leave this situation right now. I can control what's in my mind though. I think is extraordinarily powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love seeing that the lights go on in the mind. Going back to the risk point earlier, I think that's an area where like the
Yeah.
spectator feels safer, doesn't it? It kind of
Thank
feels like
you.
there's less risk. There's no kind of I'll keep safe. But as people, as we kind of go into that space of being an actor, it does feel, temporarily it can feel more risky. And well, it is
Nice.
actually
Nice linking.
in some
Yeah.
respects. In some
It is.
respects,
It
yeah.
is.
In the short
It
term,
is.
anyway, it feels
Yeah.
more risky. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's lovely as people kind of experiment in that space. As I experiment in that space, it's just like it's a great place to be,
Yeah.
and yeah, to see if you can make a difference
Yeah.
rather
In
than
that
be
sort of
captive.
liminal space. Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, so who would you hope? So we talk about democratizing coaching, executive coaching. Who would you hope is like, scanning through the bookstore or they're on Amazon or anything
Mm.
is going to kind of pick up Coach
Mm.
Yourself and get the most impact from it?
Yeah. So I'm going to go with two audiences here. I personally, and this is the thing I'm always telling my own clients, like be specific. You can't be everything to everyone, which of course is what I want my book to be, right? Um, but I think two audiences in particular, and I'll start with one is the person who's thinking about coaching, who maybe's been offered it at work, it maybe is fortunate enough that they can fund it, that may be through an online platform, right? There's
Yes.
several
Yeah.
very good ones, but I think this is a beautiful book to read to set your expectations of what coaching is, to give you a sense of what good coaching is. Um, and it could help you evaluate your own coaching journey with someone and answer some questions that help you decide, do you decide to take that action now or not? That would be one audience. And then the second would be, I think my dream would be, although not everybody like enters an office when they start working, right, with their new desk with the lamp on it and all these things, but I wish this book was on the bookshelf, or the virtual bookshelf or whatever, of
Yes.
everyone starting their first job and after college, let's say,
Yes.
because usually you have no access to coaching at that point because it's too expensive. Secondly, you don't know a lot, right? You think you do, but you really don't. And a lot of places don't have a lot of training. Some obviously some entities and companies do, but a lot of times you're just kind of thrown in and you got to try and figure it out. And I would say this is a fantastic companion book because think about your values. How do you want to show up at work? How are you going to activate those values? Think about your learning mindset and being an actor. Think about there's a framework like a gap analysis, like Mind the Gap,
Yeah.
for how to kind of think about a coaching issue. Then there's loads on communication, the checklist for having a critical conversation, a very beautiful nonviolent communication framework for when really the relationship and is paramount, and
Yeah.
even as a way to analyze previous communication that maybe didn't go well. And then there's a whole piece on management, how to be a good manager. Okay, even if you're not the manager and you're being managed, what a beautiful thing to read because you're going to now see it from both sides. So,
Got it.
yeah, I would say I would, and I think it's accessible enough. It's written, I think, in quite simple language.
Have your children had a chance to read it yet?
Uh, and this is where I have to decide if I'm going to be honest. One of them has. One of them has.
Okay.
But they've both
The
reviewed it.
favorite. The
Yeah,
favorite.
yeah, yeah, right. But they've both reviewed it. which
Great.
is, yeah, yeah. One reviewed it on Amazon Japan. I have no idea why, but maybe he didn't want anyone to really know who he was or something. But yeah, no, they have, and in fact, I have a chapter of my next book ready because my next book is about ADHD that
Right.
I'm sending to my son. I sent to my son to read who has
Yeah.
ADHD. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Great. Well, Antonia, thank you so much for sharing what you have done today. And I feel like we could continue for a lot longer, but we'll call it. We'll draw a line there. I wish you the very best of success in the book getting out there, and I hope it is on many corporate libraries and on the shelves of those who are able to come into the workforce in the next coming years. And I hope your second son gets to read it and
Yes.
apply the tools as well. I'm sure he'll be
There
blessed
we
by
go. There we go. And Simon, can I just say it's on Amazon. I know it's also on Amazon UK. And I am so grateful first to anyone buying it. It takes a village. And then secondly, please leave a review on Amazon. It's like the beast you have to keep feeding.
Yeah, great. Well, we'll certainly do that. And thank you so much for your insights and wisdom today. I'd love to know what's been a takeaway for you from this conversation.
A takeaway from this conversation for me is just again how I think two things. How powerful that question is. Tell me about your cultural makeup. What makes you you?
Yeah,
I felt like I learned so much. And secondly, sort of you picking up on specific words and the really the beauty of specific vocabulary and how powerful that can be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I've appreciated this very much, and I'm grateful particularly for you being so open about ADHD in your life and working style, and learning that you're writing a book. I'm sure that will be a gift to many in the working environment as well. But just being a bit more sensitive to that myself, I think is a really important thing for me. So thank you. That's very timely
Oh,
with relationships I have. So thank you.
oh, good, good.
It's great. Well, we wish you the very best success, and as I say, please reach out to get a copy of Coach Yourself. If anyone wants to get in touch, Antonia, how do they best do that?
Yeah, two ways. LinkedIn, just my name, Antonia Bowring, or on my website, which is a bit more complicated, AB-strategies. There's a contact form.
Great, great.
Yeah.
Super. Well, wish you all the very best, and we look forward to looking out for book number 2 when it launches.
It
as
might
well.
take a while. Haven't even started it really, but okay. Simon, thank you
Thanks so
very
much.
much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Our after dinner leadership conversation is finished. Our guest has left, and you're still here. Now, of course, you're very welcome. I'm glad that you found the conversation to be engaging. There's a few things that I'd like to ask you to do before you do leave. The first one of those is if you can stop and think about somebody who you think would enjoy this conversation, a friend, a colleague, perhaps an aspiring leader. The second thing is to stop and hit subscribe or follow. And then the third thing is to start doing something. Perhaps there's a little idea or a concept that we've been discussing today that you think you could apply even a little bit tomorrow, tonight, and to put it into action. I encourage you to use this as a catalyst to do something different, do something more interesting, do something more exciting. And thank you so much for joining us. And please tune in again for another after dinner leadership conversation. You can leave now. I need to go and do the dishes.